In this video, I'm going to walk you through doing an update document for a MongoDB using Go. We're going to use the MongoDB supported driver. It's fairly simple. I have this tutorial. It's on my website. I've linked to it in the description. If you're just looking to copy and paste, here's the code that you're looking for. If you're not looking to copy and paste, I'm going to walk you through full setup of an API. We're going to use some of this project here. It's called Go boilerplate code. I'll explain it to you in a second. We'll walk through it all, and so there's two parts to the Go boilerplate code. The first one is there's like a user authentication level. So what that is you sign up, you sign in, and your log out. So what we're gonna have to do is sign up, and we can get an authentication token back to be able to call the remainder of the API endpoints. The second part to it is it's a CRUD app, so it's cards, so it's create, delete, update, get, and then list them. All those endpoints have been created for you, and you have to have an authentication token to be able to pull your own information back. And we're also going to be using the insert endpoint because we need data to update. So I have another video on that. I've included it in the description below as well. But I'll show you how to do that in this video as well if you want. So let's get started. What you're going to do is, if you're using this project, I'd really appreciate you if you start the project just so I know people are using it. I'm going to download the zip because I'm not going to use Git for this project. I'm going to download the zip and put it into my working space, which will be my desktop. So I'm going to do that now. Once you've kind of put these files in your working space, so I'm again on my desktop, Mongo-update is my project folder. You're gonna open up the project in your favorite editor. For me, I'm gonna use Golang in this case. So I'm just gonna open the project. So desktop, and then Mongo update here. So it's now open. Let's just quickly talk about what's in this project. So it's laid out in terms of handlers, models, repositories, and services. So handlers is our HTTP request, so it handles the HTTP request, maps it to a service. The services is where the business logic lives. The repositories is the data access layer, and then the models is where all of our like structs and classes and things like that idea kind of lives. They're all, they don't have much logic to them. So let's first open up main.go. So in main.go here, we have this validate auth. I'm not going to go through that. We have the Chorus middleware. We have our connection to the DB that gets set up. So I'm just going to change this to the update DB just to have a new database. So what's going to happen is it's going to create a database connection using this Mongo localhost 2017. So no username, no password. It's going to connect to this database name. And it sets up all those repository services and handlers. And here's our endpoints. So there's the health endpoint, which is just localhost and at the root of the project. Then there's user/signup, user/signin, user/logout. And then we have our CRUD ones down below. So let's just start by starting up the project, signing up, getting that auth token back. And then we'll circle back to the CRUD endpoints, and I'll walk you through. I take that back. We'll do the insert, and then we'll go back and look at the update methods. So one thing about this project is that I don't actually include password encryption here. So I do not include like something like beEncrypt. So by default, everything is in plain text, and just for security reasons, and so people are aware of that. If you go to services and then user_service, in this method here is valid password. So jump down there. It always returns false, just because I needed to give back this warning, say, hey, like passwords can be stored in plain text. Don't use that in production. So I'm just gonna delete that. This is just a demo. Don't leave the passwords in plain text. Encrypt them. So we're just gonna return true, and with that, we're good to run. So open up the project in your terminal. So again, make mine a little bigger here. Switch into the desktop, and then I called mine Mongo update. Clear that, make it a little bigger. I'm just going to do go run main.go. Forgot to mention this at the start, but I'm assuming that you have some sort of REST client on your computer. For me, I'm going to use Postman. It's free to use. You can really use anything. If you want to use curl, you can. So I'm going to open up Postman. So I have all these endpoints saved. I'm going to just walk you through. You can create them. They're fairly quick. So it's going to be a post request to localhost 8080/user/signup. The headers are content type, and the value is application JSON. And then the body is an email. So I clicked raw, and then you're building a JSON object. So it's an email, and I'm using my email, and then a password. And with all that, I can just hit send. So it returns back a auth token. I'm just going to copy that auth token. The second endpoint we're going to call is the insert. So this is the cars endpoint. So it's again a post. Again, it's a post. Localhost 8080/cars. Headers. Unchecked version here. Well, you probably won't have it there. Header 1 is content type and it's application JSON. The next header is the authorization, bearer, space, and then your auth token. I'm just gonna paste mine in there. Last, and then we're just gonna head over to body, and this is just like make, model, year. I'll show you how this is all stored. So I'm just gonna use Ferrari Enzo as in the year 1994 as my new car. I'm storing in the database. So I'm just gonna hit send with all of this. Car is created. So let's start by opening up Compass, and let's go to our database and see the new data that's been inserted. Try this again. So I'm going to connect, again, no username, no password, anything like that. And then as you can see down here, there's update DB. It has one session, one user. So that's me who just signed up. And then it has one car, and that's the piece of data I just inserted. So there's an ID, so the object ID. Then there's a make, which is a Ferrari. The model, which is Enzo, the year 1994. Status, just another field. There's an email, which is tied to my user. So that was the email I signed up with. And then when it was created. So I have a video on querying this, deleting this, inserting this database, and I walk you through I actually do a really deep dive on walking through all this Go boilerplate code. The whole point of this video was just simply to focus on the update. So let's get to that. Let's open up our main.go to start off with. So we have a put request, and we pass in /ID. So in this case, that'd be the car ID, that object ID we just saw, and that calls the cars handler. So if you open up handlers, cars handler, we're going to look for the update method. Okay, so as you can see, we grab that ID from the parameter, the URL parameter. We then have a body, which is the JSON object that we're passing in. So update car, and sorry, I keep using shortcuts here, but it's under model and cars. And if you scroll down here, there's an update car. There's a make, a year, a model, and a status. So we can kind of update all these attributes. We have this method here for validating. It's empty. And then the last method here is this update method. It's also tied to this object, and I'll explain this one in a second. So we bind the request body to our new struct. We use our validate method, always returns nil. I haven't actually set it up. We grab the session from the gin context, and then we call our service layer, just so we don't have to come back here. Either the update returns an error, and we show that error to the user. Again, not quite sure if that's the correct move if it's a public API, but this is just for demo purposes. Otherwise, if there's no error, we just show updated car. So let's go to services and then cars. We want to get down to this update. This is a very, very simple method. we pass in the car ID, the user's email, and the body right into the car's repository, so that data access layer I was talking about. And we call update. Again, if there's an error, we pass it back. If there's no error, we return nil. You could even shorten this to just be like return here, since it's usually you would log out the error on the service level and then just return like a general error back up to the handler method. That's why it's kind of broken up to this, but you can just do this if you really want to. So let's check out update. So I'm under repositories and the car repo repository. So here's my update. To start off with, let's talk about this. We're gonna have a filter. We have the car ID as a string, and we have the user email, which comes from the session, that auth token that we're passing in. The car ID is not a string in the database. Just looking at our compass again, we can see that it's an object ID. So the first thing we have to do is convert that car ID into be a document ID. An object ID. Next, we have to build that filter. It's down here, line 91, where we use the document ID and the email. The reason for the email is we don't want someone to be able to update other people's data. So we want to make sure the owner of the piece of data is the only one who can update it. Next, we call this update method. So this is, again, stored in the models right here. And what it is essentially we're building a Mongo update query. There's a few ways to do this. I'm going to start by showing you the Mongo docs just to explain what I'm doing. I'm actually going to walk you through the method and I'll show you the Mongo docs. So if make the make is set, we put it make and then the value. If the model is set, put the model and the value. If year is equal to 0, put the year there. If the status is set, if all these are empty, just return nil. Don't do anything. And then we use the set method. So what this would look like is if you were going to execute this, it'd be so if you're going to use like Mongo, like the shell commands, it would look like this, where it would be like make. And let's say I didn't want a Ferrari, I wanted to call it Jaguar. I actually made a typo, a big typo, I guess. I want to use like a Jaguar. It would look like this. For example, let's say I'm not using the year. I got the year right. And this would set the make and the model and leave the other fields alone. This works great. This is the set method. I'm going to include this actually in my description. But here's the set method, so you can see some examples. So we have, for example, this date object, and you want to set the quantity to be 500, so it's at 250. Your call would look like this. So you kind of use like your filter, and then you use your set method. Same thing. It gets a little more tricky when you start using things like arrays, where you have to like push onto the array. So you have like an array of objects. Same with poll or pop. The whole list is here, but the most common one is the set method. It's just used for setting attributes. So let's just jump back over to the repository method, and then I'm actually going to show you a different way to do this as well. So the way the update works is we use the Mongo client. So this is from before in our main.go. You can go into DB to see this. It's Mongo client. So the connection to the database, .collection, and our collection is called cars. Next, we're going to use .update1 because we just want to update a single document, nothing more. I know since we're using the ID, I know for a fact there's always going to just be one. We pass in the context, then we pass in the filter, and then we pass in the update query. Like the example we just saw, it's filtered down by the document ID and the email, and then the set method set these attributes to be this. Fairly straightforward, and then what it does is it returns back the updated results and the error. We don't really care about the updated results, so we're just going to put in an underscore, and we're just pass back an error if an error is thrown. So let's actually execute this. So this is all running. I haven't made any changes. I made one change, but it's not going to affect it. Let's head back to our Postman. I'm going to open up a new tab here. So it's going to be a put request. localhost 8080/cars slash the ID. Now I don't have the ID, so I'm gonna head over to Compass. This one right here, I'm just gonna copy it. Head back to my Postman and paste it. Again, I don't have, so I'm gonna uncheck version. We don't want that one. I don't have my auth token, so I'm gonna head back to my other call. Our headers are content type, and which has application JSON, and authorization, which has the bearer, space, and then the auth token. And then our body, I have to change it to be Mazda. This is less exciting. So it's a Jaguar. And let's not change the make, let's change the model. It's another Ferrari F40. And let's change it to be a 2000. So we're gonna set the year and the model. So right now it's a make of a Ferrari Enzo 1994. Instead, we're gonna make it be, I've lost my Postman. Here's Postman. Model's gonna be an F40 and then a year of 2000. And we've already set the car type, so let's just hit send. So this is updated car, so no error was thrown. Let's head back to our Compass. Let's just use a refresh here. So Ferrari F40 year 2000. Great, it's all been set. So we're gonna change the status here. I'm gonna show you a different way to do this one. So I actually don't like as much anymore this approach of using, like, if it's an empty string, set make. And so I'm actually just gonna change the status because, for example, if like make can never be set to empty string, therefore this is fine because, like, if they provide a make, we want to always be set. If they don't provide a make, we don't want to change it. But status can be an empty string. So what if I want to reset it to be, like, let's say set the status to be, owned or something like that, and I wanted to reset it to be an empty string. Well, in this logic, that's impossible to do. So what I'm actually going to change here is I'm going to use a pointer. So I'm going to change this. Let me just scroll up. This update car here. I'm going to change it to be a pointer to a string, which breaks this. So if status is not nil, and so let me just get this one right. So if status is not nil, and then if I actually use, if status is not nil, and kind of no matter what the status is, I'm just gonna use my reference to the pointer. So if status is not nil, that means this string has been set. No matter whatever the value is in that pointer, we want to set it into the status. So it can be an empty string in this case and it would work. So let me quickly show you what I mean by that. I haven't restarted the API yet. And I did that on purpose because I want to show you setting it to something and then not being able to unset it. So let's change status to be owned. I'm just going to hit send here. I'm going to head back to my Compass and then I'm going to refresh this. So now it says own. Perfect. That's exactly what I wanted. Now let's say potentially I don't own the car anymore and I want to set it back to be empty. So we'll set it to be an empty string. I'm going to hit send. It says updated car, but in fact, it has not updated because when status is an empty string, it doesn't update. So let's restart our server and let's see how that works differently. So go run main.go, same thing as before. Go back to Postman. I'm going to try to set it to be an empty string now. Hit send. It says updated car. Head to Compass and refresh it. And as you can see now, it can be set to an empty string. So let's try owned instead this time. Hit send again. This is a lot of back and forth. Refresh. It says it's owned. Now let's try changing the year to be 2001. So let's pretend that status isn't provided in this case. So it should not break. There should be no issues. So 2001. Hit send. Works fantastic. Doesn't break. Year gets incremented. And that's another way to do the update if you want to be able to set empty strings. I actually recommend doing that. But the only catch there is it might get finicky with pointers, right? Because like now you can't just assume that the value doesn't throw in a pointer exception, like a null pointer exception. So kind of use it where it only makes sense. But yeah, that's update. It's pretty simple. I have a whole bunch of videos on the other ones. Please check them out. Please subscribe, and thank you for watching.